My name is Nathan Kurtz. I work at the Kauffman Foundation in Kansas City. Kauffman is the foundation for education and entrepreneurship, and we're very honored to be here today. Our next speaker, please give him a warm welcome. His name is Ethan Brown. He's the CEO of Beyond Meat. Beyond Meat was just recently named by Time Magazine as one of the top 10 startups to watch in 2014. They just located their plant in Missouri, have 35 employees, and are growing. Please give Ethan a warm welcome.
Great. So thanks to all of the guys in the back, Jimmy and Kyle and Larry as well, for making sure we can hear you and see you. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, and it's terrific to be here. Thank you so much for including me.
Great. Well, let's first start off with what made you decide, Ethan Brown, to start a company?
Sure. It was a decision that came to me over many, many years. I was in the alternative energy space for a long time working on fuel cells, which is a great technology, hydrogen-powered fuel cells. But I had an interest from early on in my childhood around animals. And I started to think more about that about 10 years ago. And started to think about livestock and the impact that livestock has on human health, on the environment, and of course on the animal itself. And started to increasingly get uncomfortable that I wasn't addressing issues that I thought were important. And I looked at really 4 issues. I looked at human health and heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. I looked at climate change. And this is something that's not well known by many people, but it's 51% of greenhouse gas emissions can be attributed to livestock. And this is not a number from the Sierra Club or from Friends of the Earth. This is a World Bank study that looked at the cumulative impact of livestock on greenhouse gas emissions. I took natural resources and the amount of water, land, and energy that we were devoting to raising protein the way we were raising it. I looked at animal welfare, and I said, okay, 66 billion animals a year confined and slaughtered for animal protein. And I said, I want to make a contribution toward a better system. And so I started to invest in some restaurants that were doing plant-based proteins. And I saw mainstream consumers, not people in Birkenstocks with long hair, but doctors, lawyers, professionals, enjoying these products and picking these restaurants over restaurants that were serving the animal protein equivalent. So I thought to myself, what would happen if you had a perfect replacement for animal protein? If you took the constituent parts of animal protein, which are lipids, amino acids, water, a little bit of trace minerals, a little bit of carbohydrates. You got all of that from the plant kingdom, and assembled it in a way that, from a texture perspective and from a taste perspective, was exactly the same as animal protein. So you just had meat, but it was created from lipids, amino acids, minerals, carbohydrates, water that didn't come from an animal. If that could be accomplished, would people accept it? And that question just kept coming back to me. And so ultimately, I decided to start the company. And that led me here.
So let's back up just a little bit. What were you doing prior to making the decision to start Savage River Farms? I have an MBA and I have a policy degree, and I was doing what I felt was really meaningful work, and it is really meaningful work. I was working on clean tech, on fuel cells specifically, because I felt that was the most important thing I'd be doing for climate change. I feel very strongly about the changing climate, and I wanted to make a contribution in that area. So I went into that field, and it was very rewarding, but sometimes you don't make a decision, you answer a calling. And I think you have to have the level of conviction to leave behind a 401k, leave behind stock options, leave behind a great career to start something. And sometimes it's not a decision, it's a calling. And you're going to be more successful if you figure out inside yourself what that calling is and try to answer that versus guessing, is this market going to reward me better or that market going to reward me better? That is something that will just get you chasing rabbit holes. You want to focus on what you feel is calling you as an individual, and that's hard to do. It's hard to find. It could take years to figure that out. But if you figure that out, you'll actually do something very meaningful and important versus just kind of getting pushed one way or the other.
So why the name Beyond Meat?
Right.
Where did you come up with the name Beyond Meat?
Right. So the reason for using the name Beyond Meat is we love meat. Meat is delicious. Fried chicken and steak, it's hard to argue with that, right? They taste great. So, it's not about not eating meat, it's about where is the meat coming from? Is it coming from amino acids, and is it coming from fats that are produced in a way that's harmful for the environment and for human health? Or is it coming from those same constituent parts that's produced basically from plant matter and very beneficial to human health? And so we didn't want to call ourselves anything that was in any way suggested that we weren't meat. So we wanted to say this is meat 2.0 essentially.
David Kuster says hello. He's watching. He says, finishing up a website for Chef Richard Blias's new restaurant, Juniper and Ivy. Question here, how difficult was it to raise the investment cash? Can you share any details about financing? Who were your early investors?
Sure. The thing about starting a company, you end up doing things that you never thought you would do, in good and bad ways. You push yourself, right? And you are forced to make decisions. At times I had to call family members up and get them to, transfer money into my account because we had shipments coming in from Asia that I couldn't cover. So it's not sort of for the faint of heart. Initially, it was from friends and family and neighbors and things like that. I also just raided my own accounts. You set up these things where you say, okay, I'm never going to touch that money. And then you touch that money. You say, okay, well, I'm never going to sell that house. And then you sell that house. And it's like, I once heard a student speak in at my graduate school. He came back. He was a successful entrepreneur. And he had a good comment, which is you have to cut off all safety nets because it'll get so hard that you'll want to take that safety net. And so you have to eliminate those if you want to persist. And that's really, really true. I didn't plan to do that, but I ended up doing it anyway. And that's important. But I think the thing that allowed me to gain the investment that I got was it's rare that you find a single solution that addresses 4 major problems, right? So you have the human health issue, you have climate change, you have natural resources, you have animal welfare. Creating meat from plants addresses all 4 of those. I think to an investor, that's exciting because that could be transformative in terms of markets.
So as far as the positives, let's talk about the good stuff. What has been some of the positives that have come from building the company?
Just amazing. I get really excited about helping people live healthier lives. We got a guy who's coming out to our facility tomorrow who lost his leg in a motorcycle accident. He's running the Boston Marathon, lost 70 pounds eating our product. It's about people that are going beyond in their lives, nutritionally, mentally, and being part of that journey with them is super, super exciting. It's everything, actually. Helping, we go to our Facebook page whenever I need a lift and just reading the changes that people are making in their lives. Parents that can cut down on their cholesterol, children can be with their parents more as a result. Being a positive contributor to people's lives is what's the most important thing.
So there are a lot of entrepreneurs out here, young entrepreneurs, who've asked, if you would do it again, and the answer is yes, what would you do differently?
How much time do you have?
Yeah.
I would do a lot differently. But this is something that I talk about with my company a lot. Particularly, it's hard for some of the folks to accept because they're perfectionists. You have to be willing to fail, and fail often, and fail fast, and get back up. I have failed so many times in my life. I've been fired. I've had failure, and massive success in areas. And it's a failure, it's a cliche, but it is a great teacher. And so I certainly would do a huge number of things differently, but the approach that I've taken, which is to put things out there, try to make them work, be resilient if they fail, is not something I would change. That's something that I would continue to do.
So talk about getting the product to market. How difficult has it been to introduce a brand new food product that never existed before.
Right. It is. So two things on that line, and I want to back up a little bit and talk about the University of Missouri for a second because it's a common theme. The most important thing in building a company is, and this sounds like it's right out of a Jim Collins book or Stephen Covey book, and sort of manufactured, but it's the God's honest truth. Good organizations start with great people, and if you don't have that, you're not going to be a great company. You got to go out and get great people. You got to pay for it. You got to be willing to give them equity in the company, but it's all about people. And this company wouldn't be here if the scientists who weren't at the University of Missouri weren't also great people, because it was the partnership between us and Harriet and Chris at the University Licensing Office, Harold Huff, Fu Hong Shea, Harriet Francis, Chris Fender. It was our partnership that allowed this company to be successful. If they were just good scientists and just good lawyers and just good business people, but not good people, this never would have happened, because they cut me breaks, they gave me confidence when I needed it, and in exchange, we said, we want to be in the Missouri community, we want to be in mid-Missouri producing here. So the first thing is it starts with people. To answer your question, Whole Foods did the same thing for us. They were not only a good customer, they were good people. They helped the business at every turn. They could have said, hey, we're only going to cut you in if you cut your prices and give us a massive break. They never did that. They said, how can we help you grow? And so it was finding good people to partner with and good people to sell to that made the difference for me.
Mm-hmm. So of all the places to locate,
Why here?
why here? You could have gone to California. You could have gone
Right.
to a big city.
Right.
Why here?
It was out of loyalty to the university. And it was out of a desire to continue to access the intellectual firepower here. Mm-hmm. Those two things. One, they were an enormously good partner to us, and I wanted to show that we could be a good partner to them. And second, I don't understand this about the business community. The universities are full of brilliant people with great ideas that don't have the time to commercialize. So I've said this before, I think at the last conference I was at, big companies have big R&D departments. Entrepreneurs have universities. Like, that's how it works, right? Go to the university, find the ideas, get those ideas into market. And so I wanted to be next to a university that I had an enormous amount of respect for, and that, of course, Mizzou.
So all of these young entrepreneurs, listen to what he's saying. He's saying, stick around right here, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And by the way, it's a beautiful place to live. I mean, it's like I've lived in other places. This is you get a beautiful horse farm here, relax, have a nice family. It's a great quality of life, and that's important,
I want to get questions from you all. So who has a question for Ethan Brown? And if you all would go up to the microphone to your right-hand side, that would be great. And while he's going, we have some questions online, but if you have it up, go ahead and speak into the microphone your question.
So just a question, what makes your product different than like Boca Burgers or
Sure.
Morningstar Farms and those sorts of meat alternatives?
Sure. So I think it was really the quote from Ford in that, if you ask people today what they want, they'll say, well, we just want a veggie burger, because that's what we're used to, right? But sometimes you have to lead the customer and say, well, hold on, we could actually really replicate meat. And what makes our product different is the degree of the texture. We have focused so much on the interlocking of protein and how that tears on your teeth so that the experience you're having is actually meat-like versus compressed soy. And so it's that fibrous structure that you'll see us constantly obsess about, because that's ultimately what makes it different. So we can take our product and a chicken breast, our product and a thing of ground beef, put them under medical imaging devices, and we can see the differences, and we can sort of slowly over time collapse that. We just hired a guy last fall that was had spent 4 years at Harvard Medical School, because he understands protein and protein interaction. So we're not trying to create a veggie burger. I have no interest in doing that. I have an interest in creating meat from plants.
Question. Next, go ahead.
So if you're saying if I were blindfold and you had your chicken alternative and then a real piece of chicken, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference?
So I can answer that in two ways. One, Mark Bittman from the New York Times, who has a very sophisticated palate, obviously. He's a leading food critic.
I went to his apartment one day and we had 7 dishes for him. And in many of them, he couldn't tell us which was our product and which was animal protein. When we pitched to Bill Gates, who's an investor in the company, he asked several times, he said, is there meat in this? So it really depends on the application though. You know, we're not yet there where you could have like a piece of boneless, skinless chicken breast in our product. It'd be absolutely obvious, the difference. But someday, we'll get there.
Next question. And if you'd introduce yourself and say where you're from.
I'm Dennis from Mizzou.
Thanks, Dennis.
Hi, I'm Cindy Maddox. I teach in the North Callaway School District, a little east and north of here.
Great.
And my question is, where in this area can we buy your products?
Right. So the way that we handled distribution was we did an exclusive partnership first with Whole Foods, and then we went into the rest of the natural channel, so like Sprouts and I think here is Vitamin Cottage. And then this year now we've gone into sort of Publix, H-E-B, we'll be in Safeway, and we'll start to be in Target in the fall. So it's the natural food stores here, and I believe it's Vitamin Cottage, right? There's a Vitamin Cottage.
Vitamin Cottage, anyone?
Yeah, here that has the product. But yeah, it is, we have a map on our site that shows all of the retail locations for it. But also, are you actually with the school district? Yes. Yeah, so we'd love to sell into the school district. That'd be great. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Robert. I'm from Rolla, Missouri. My question was 2 parts, actually. One, to get that FaceTime with those investors, I know you mentioned Bill Gates. What did it take for you to get those meetings? I don't think you just messaged him on Facebook and said, hey, can we meet, you know?
Right.
So that was the first part of my question. The second part was, what was the timeline to get sustainable revenue to the company so it could actually kind of survive on its own? You didn't have to tap into that safety net.
Right. So the first was, it's a great, both are great questions. You know, I just did a lot of marketing at first. So we had the license from the university, and once I got that, I went outside of friends and family and said, okay, now I want to go to institutional investors. We also got very fortunate. Time Magazine covered the technology in 2010, and that kind of picked up investor interest. And then Kleiner Perkins, the Silicon Valley firm, really stuck their neck out on this and made an investment in it. And that then introduced us to a number of people, Biz Stone and Evan Williams, the founders of Twitter, who are just fantastic guys. The week that Twitter was going public, they were emailing me about stores that were having issues with our product in terms of placement and things like that. So they're super involved, they're super helpful. And it sort of, you know, it went from one thing to another, and it's a blessing that, you know, I still pinch myself over.
Great. I am so sorry. We're going to have to cut off questions right now because we do want to be on time. However, I would imagine that, Ethan, you would be in the back to answer questions. There's also individuals online who have questions as well that we didn't get to. And if you'd see Danny at the back of the room, you can type those in chat and it can answer them as well. So Ethan Brown of Beyond Meat, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thanks, guys. Thank you.